Ontario investing millions to connect Northerners to specialized health care in other parts of the province. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Ontario's health minister was in Thunder Bay today, confirming $45 million to connect people from the north to specialized health care services.
Sylvia Jones, who's also the Deputy Premier, made the announcement to expand the Northern Health Travel Grant Program. Vasilios Bells was with the minister today, and Vasilios, does that mean people from the region will now be better compensated when traveling for health care?
Yes, Riley, there's actually a few expansions to the program, including $75 more a night for accommodations. It also more than doubles the hotel allowance when spending 8 or more nights away. The $45 million investment is part of Ontario's 2024 budget and spread out over 3 years, making health care for Northern Ontarians more accessible.
More people in Northern Ontario can connect to the specialized care they need when they need it.
Ontario's Health Minister and Deputy Premier Sylvia Jones was at Thunder Bay Regional, confirming $45 million over 3 years to expand the Northern Health Travel Grant Program. It's part of Ontario's 2024 budget. The program covers some of the costs for those in Northern Ontario accessing OHIP-insured health services not available within 100 kilometers of their home. That could involve patients from the region coming to Thunder Bay Regional or anyone from the north needing to travel to Southern Ontario.
Some of our patients have to travel to access care, and this can be a daunting experience.
Patient family advisor at Thunder Bay Regional Paul Carr says he sees the challenges travel can bring firsthand, calling the grant program crucial.
For some, it may be the first time they've ever traveled to an urban center. And of course, it can be expensive. This can be a deterrent to accessing care, as well as an added burden during a very stressful time for both patients and families.
The expansion to the program sees the initial accommodation allowance per night increase from $100 to $175, and allowance for 8 or more nights from $550 to $1,150. The travel distance requirement to be eligible for overnight accommodation has also been decreased from 200 to 100 kilometers. Minister Jones says while the program is currently necessary, the province recognizes improving health services in the north would limit travel altogether.
MRI machines are being placed in hospitals that have never had access to an MRI machine. Similar conversations and announcements are being made with CT scanners. So we want to make sure that as much as possible, we have the access locally for people.
The province will begin implementing the expansions in the fall. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
A judge has ruled that Thunder Bay's insurance company must defend the city in multiple lawsuits for pinhole leaks. The company argued the insurance policy contained a clause about lead pipes that excluded the city's coverage for these claims. But a court judge recently ruled against that, saying the exclusion doesn't relate to lead in the water supply. The largest lawsuit against the city is $350 million. It's a class action in which affected property owners say sodium hydroxide that was added to the water supply in 2018 to reduce lead levels is what caused the leaks. The Thunder Bay DSAB is also seeking $5 million for damage to its properties. None of the claims have been proven in court.
Officials at Lakehead University and Confederation College are relieved that a federal cap on international students won't impact the two local institutions.
That announcement was made at the NOMA conference on Friday. It means LU and the college won't have to cut foreign enrollment like many other post-secondary schools here in Ontario. Jonathan Wilson explains.
The welcome news came at the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association conference last Friday, as Ontario's Minister of Colleges and Universities, Jill Dunlop, delivered the update to the delegates.
We were able to come up with a formula that had the least impact on the greatest amount of schools. So right here in Thunder Bay, we're actually going to see no change in the number of international students.
Lakehead University currently has around 1,900 international students. The foreign cap announced by the federal government in January to address the housing crisis could have cut that number in half this coming September. But the province was given time to determine which institutions would bear the brunt of the cap, and LU managed to dodge the bullet.
Yeah, that's incredibly welcome news. Like every university, we were worried about the impact that the cap might have. So we're just delighted that we're going to have the same number of students eligible to come as we had last year. We see international students as incredibly important to the richness of our environment here at Lakehead and also to Thunder Bay and the region.
Over at Confederation College, just over half of their 4,700 students come from other countries, and losing a large percentage of them would have sent their enrollment numbers and the college's budget into a freefall. Chief Operating Officer Michelle Salo says many other schools in Southern Ontario weren't so lucky, and says the province's announcement was the best case scenario for Confederation.
We are actually at the same place as we were last year, which is really good news for the college. There's 11 out of the 24 colleges who received the exact same number of permits as last year, and we happen to be one of them, and we're very appreciative of that. I'm just extremely happy. I think this is a really good thing for Northwestern Ontario. We've had international students that we've brought into some of our regional campuses like Kenora, Dryden, Fort Francis, and it's making a huge difference.
Meanwhile, Federal Immigration Minister Mark Miller announced this week that the number of hours that international students can work while they're attending school in Canada will be cut from 40 hours per week to 24 hours. Siddall says there are pros and cons to that decision.
I think that will be challenging for some students, but it ensures that students have time to focus on their studies and their experience of being at a university. And we do have supports for students who are struggling financially as well.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
The head of a local teachers union calls the Ford government's new cell phone ban in the classroom a positive change, but worries about how teachers will enforce the new rules. Education Minister Stephen Lecce says come September, the province will force students to put away their phones during school hours. Many believe unnecessary cell phone usage has been a problem in Ontario schools for years. Under the new rules, kindergarten to grade 6 students will have to keep their phones on silent and out of sight for the entire school day. Those in grades 7 to 12 won't be allowed to use their phones during class time unless their studies require it. The government says the restrictions are meant to treat cell phones as an important learning tool instead of a distraction. Lakehead Elementary Teachers President Dave Paddington says he worries this will add another burden to teachers' already heavy workload.
Well, I think it's going to be a big challenge for teachers to manage and for administration to manage in schools. I think students are definitely addicted to their phones and like to have them, and they've got their Snapchat going or their Be Real going or all these different things happening with phones, and it really is a big piece of their social world. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges that staff in schools is going to find.
The First Nations Land Defence Alliance organized an event in Thunder Bay today to protest against nuclear waste storage and transportation in the north.
The LDA was joined by other Indigenous leaders and community members for the gathering at Waverley Park. Nev Van Pelt has the details.
Stop nuke dump! Stop nuke dump! Stop nuke dump!
A group of First Nations continue to fight for their voices to be heard, and many people from the community joined the First Nations Land Defence Alliance at Waverley Park to protest nuclear waste storage. They depend on their land and water, and Grassy Narrows Chief Rudy Turtle voiced some of their worries.
We're concerned that of future leaks and accidents, and we're very concerned that if that should happen, it could contaminate the local environment, like the animals and also the air and the grounds, and so we're just we don't want that to happen.
The Nuclear Waste Management Organization has been studying an area near Ignace as one of 2 shortlisted sites for storing all of Canada's highly radioactive nuclear waste. The Land Defence Alliance is opposed to this plan, and the chief of Gull Bay is as well. Wilfred King says this proposal affects all Ontarians, and that the NWMO needs the approval of all communities in this region.
They need the consent of all the First Nations, especially if this is going through territories in which people utilize the territory and land. And it's always been my belief that Aboriginal and treaty rights will save a lot of the environmental issues that we're talking about. And it's my feeling that the entrenchment of those rights in the Constitution, and when First Nations have a say in development, that's their only protection that we have.
The First Nations are very concerned about the multi-millennial risk and how the nuclear waste could impact future generations. They continue to fight for respect of their communities.
Indigenous lands under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back!
Transportation accidents and long-term leaks were also voiced as a concern. Ojibwe's Avonigaming councillor Clarissa Kelly says all surrounding communities would be impacted by this, and she explains why they are protesting.
We feel like we don't have a voice, and we're leaving our future generations up to a simple yes or no vote. And we want to make sure that the impacts don't have any destruction, any non-existent wildlife later on in our future.
The NWMO plans to choose its preferred site by the end of 2024. Nev Van Pelt, TBT News.
A transport driver has been charged by Ignace OPP after the big truck lost control and flipped over on Sunday evening. It happened on Highway 17 near English River, about halfway between Uppsala and Ignace. Photos posted by OPP on social media show the vehicle on its side, badly damaged, with its front axle and wheels detached. Police said there were no injuries. The driver, a 25-year-old man from Guelph, was charged with careless driving.
Schools in the Lakehead Public Board will now fly the Fort William First Nation flag in an effort to ensure every student feels represented and welcome. The board raised the first flag on Monday afternoon at Westgate High School, which is located on Fort William First Nation's traditional territory. Students, staff, and First Nation members were in attendance for the historic moment. Chief Michelle Solomon calls this an important step towards reconciliation.
Now it can be a discussion point in classrooms and a discussion point when students are home with their families talking about what this means. And you know, it's really a process of learning for everybody, because even today, not everybody understands the significance of what it means to be on somebody's traditional territory.
It really supports our students and their identity when they come to school, and they know that they're an important and valued part of their school, that of the school, and that we acknowledge the history.
The plan is for all schools with the Lakehead Board to have a Fort William First Nation flag flying as soon as possible.
Let's turn our attention over to the weather now. And Haley, it's still a bit of a gray, cloudy day out there as we somewhat recover from that rain that we saw.
Yes, we did see a break in the rain, which was nice. The clouds did stick around to create that grayness, but there was a little bit of brightness to the sky as well. At least you could tell it was daytime at the very least. And our temperatures were fairly nice as well once we got to around 5 o'clock. So now at this time of day, we're sitting at around our best temperatures. 5 o'clock was when we saw our high of 10 degrees. And then our low was 2 degrees, but that was very early in the morning. That was between 5 and 7 a.m. this morning. And our winds today were very light, a little bit breezy here and there, but nothing that'll blow you over. And we did see a little rain in the morning. That ended around 8 a.m. and it's eased up since then. But we weren't the only ones to see precipitation in the region today. Red Lake, they actually saw light snow until around noon this morning. Luckily, that's cleared up for them now. They're looking at a partly cloudy sky and 6 degrees. We see 10 in both Kenora and Fort Frances. They've experienced consistent cloud coverage throughout the day, very overcast in those areas, similar to Dryden as well. Right now, Atikokan and Uppsala are both sitting at 9 degrees. That is the warmest they've seen all day today. So we're still sitting at a little bit below our normal highs for this time of year, and especially up in the north, more Pickle Lake, 4 degrees right now, Armstrong 4 degrees as well, 5 in Sioux Lookout and in Greenstone. They're overcast in Greenstone as well right now, and they've seen a mixture of fog and cloud coverage. In Marathon and Wawa, they're both at 4 degrees, and they've seen a mixture of fog, mist, cloud coverage, and a little bit of precipitation as well, which is what Sault Ste. Marie is currently seeing. They're at 6 degrees. They're seeing some freezing drizzle, and they've had that on and off throughout the day today. And now for Thunder Bay tonight, we are looking at getting that rain back in our area, unfortunately. Well, but the good news is that it'll be happening when most of us are asleep. So if you're gonna water your grass, might as well be at a time when it's not gonna bother you. So that's always good. It'll be 1 degree tonight and mainly cloudy with that period of rain happening sometime before the morning. But of course, I'll have all the details a little bit later.
Okay. All right, thanks a lot, Haley. Well, let's turn our attention to national news now, and some drama in the House of Commons today when Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was expelled by the Speaker for using unparliamentary language. He called the Prime Minister a wacko. We'll have details on that and more when your news hour continues after the break.
I'm going to ask the Leader of the Opposition once again to just withdraw that comment.